Hello and welcome to my channel, AB Make It Artwork, where we do what we do to make that artwork for you. And today's video is going to be a WTF am I doing art tutorial about how to use shapes to create form. And our example, we're going to be drawing hands. Now that we have a fresh sheet of paper, I was going to do this in real time and explain the shape in the hand, but I figured visuals are always better. So if you want to try this at home, you can separate your hand into different shapes. For my video, I decided to separate the hand into the back of the hand with a square, the thumb joint with a sort of jelly bean squish circle and 2 rectangles, and the rest of the fingers with 3 rectangles. Now, if you've ever observed how to draw books and how to draw hands, they do use similar shapes, and in some instances they may use circles to represent the joints. Now, I personally find that a bit redundant if you've already separated your finger or fingers for the hand with different squares, so I don't do that. My advice for people who are trying to learn how to draw hands, aside from drawing shapes on your hands, is to just observe from nature. It's at this moment I realized I didn't show the shapes on my palm. So again, we have another weird jelly bean for the area around the thumb, a squished ellipse for the area at the top of the palm, and a sort of trapezoid for the other bit of skin that sort of puffs out on the palm. And overall, it's a square. So, observation, looking at things, taking time to see how does a hand bend is, in my personal opinion, the best way to learn how to do anything. And with these shapes drawn on your hand, you can see how these circles, the squares, all build up to create a hand. And for the purposes of this video, I did move my hand around, do different poses to show that I would start off with the square at the back of the palm, back of my hand, then go into the circle for the joint of the thumb, then create the different rectangles that were the areas between the joints of each finger. And that's sort of how I just prefer to create my hands. Now, is this the only way to draw a hand? No. There's plenty of people who do more tutorials on how to draw hands. There's even some YouTubers who have more thorough videos on how to draw hands. And I think I will link those videos and YouTubers in the description, so if you want to look at their videos on how to draw hands, you will be able to watch them. So, some other recommendations I have for learning how to observe shapes and drawing hands: tracing paper. You can get tracing paper and you can look through magazines, or you can look at pictures on the internet. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't for putting your paper over a screen. It's a bit harder. Sometimes you can even just put tracing paper on your window and observe shapes outside. Now, I know that doesn't help with hands entirely, but the main point I want to get out is observing shapes in nature with that example. But for drawing hands, you can use the tracing paper and you can look at hands in magazines or even full bodies of models. And you can trace over the silhouette, but in a different color, you can trace out the different shapes. Or you can start the opposite way with tracing out the shapes that you see in the body or the hand, and then outlining those shapes in a darker color. For instance, right now in the video, you can see that I have taken an HB graphite pencil, and I'm going over the shapes to create finer details, to show wrinkles in the skin, to show my fingernails, to show the difference in circumference, the difference in weight in my fingers between the different rectangles as to where joints would be, or different folds in the skin because shapes are overlapping. And backing paper example, once you've drawn those shapes, you can then outline the curves or the form of the body. And that'll give you some idea of how to take circles and squares and to make your own bodies in the future. Now, eventually, when you get used to the different shapes, you create these more obscure, abstract shapes. For instance, I don't always draw a square when I'm drawing my hand. I don't always divide the hand into a square, a weird jelly bean circle for the thumb, and a bunch of rectangles. As I've progressed through observation, I can draw one weird trapezoid for the shape of the hand or rhombus and create wonky looking cone shapes to make my fingers. And that's just something that comes with practice. Right now you can see that I am inking over the details with the drawings that I did in the darker pencil. And something that you should be kind of aware of, if you make a mistake, this is something my art professor has taught me, if you make a mistake in painting or drawing, if you continue to do the same mistake, but intentionally, it will not look like a mistake. It'll look like a stylistic choice. So instead of being a mistake, it'll be, as Bob Ross says, a happy accident. An intentional looking happy accident in which people go like, ah, and they won't notice it. They honestly will not notice it. So at this time, I'm going to list off the YouTubers with more in-depth tutorials as well as resources for hands. There is Proko. There's Cynic's Design. I believe Keenan Lafferty has a tutorial about hands. And a good resource for observing pictures of hands and learning how to do quick gestures is Croquis Cafe. They've recently been making videos in which they have different hand gestures and hands holding objects. And they do a quick tutorial on how to draw fast hand gestures. Other than that, I have my Pinterest board full of hands. You can look up hands on Google and Pinterest. But if you don't really have the time for that, I will link my Pinterest account in the description below. So other than that, I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. That if you liked this video, give it a like. Put a comment, question, or suggestion, or any concerns that you have in the comment section down below. That if you want to stay for more sketchy content on my channel, maybe hit that subscribe button. Want to stay on top of it, hit the little notification bell. And that I hope that you continue to do what you do to make that artwork for you. And this week's obsession, my weekly obsession, is Mac Does It. Other than that, lots of love. Bye.